Hello and welcome to the Patterson Museum. I'm Giacomo Stefano, Director. Joining me is our curator, Heather Garside. Patterson Museum is located in the heart of Patterson's Great Falls Historic District in New Jersey. Patterson celebrates itself as the first planned industrial city in the United States, and our exhibitions, of course, reflect this status. Patterson was the home of the silk industry, locomotive industry, and the airplane engine industry. And along with that came many inventors and geniuses from around the world to base their operations right here in Patterson, including one unusual gentleman who becomes the inventor of the modern submarine. It's my pleasure to introduce our curator, who's going to take us in the back and show us the exhibit, John Philip Holland.
In 1841, John Holland was born in County Clare, Ireland, and in 1873 he immigrated to the United States. Packed in his trunk with him were his early designs, which included those for underwater vessels.
John Holland's designs finally became a reality in 1878. He was able to construct the hull of boat number 1. The work for it was done in New York City at the Albany Iron Works, on the corner of Washington and Albany Street, no longer there. And the machinery for it, which was a new Brighton petroleum engine, was installed here in Patterson at J.C. Todd and Company, about 2 blocks from where he would actually test the submersible. Dimensions-wise, the submarine is 14.5 feet or 4.42 meters. It's a little less than a meter across and about 1.2 meters in height, or 3 feet by 3 feet essentially. Very cramped. The motor would have been aft, and how he fit in there, we wouldn't know. Other than the slight man that John Holland was, none of us would probably fit in this experimental model. She was tested up above the Great Falls in the Passaic River in May and June of 1878. June 6th, it went down, which didn't surprise anyone, but it did surface after 1 hour. The Brighton petroleum engine, which produced about 4 horsepower, was able to propel the vessel on above water at about 3.5 miles, and it's estimated the same beneath the water. This sub would be used for a number of tests, and then after which he would scuttle the submarine so no one would steal his idea. The successful trials that he engaged in May and June of 1878 was enough to get the financial support he would need to build the much larger submarine, boat number 2.
Following the trials in the Passaic River, John Holland removed all of the useful equipment from the Holland 1. He then sunk the hull in the Passaic River, and there it rested until the summer of 1927, when a group of college boys found her, under 5 feet of water and 6 feet of mud and silt. They built a dry dock and excavated her, and then they ceremoniously floated her down the river and presented her to the city of Patterson in October of 1927. She's been in the museum's collection ever since. The conning tower and propeller that you see today are recreations. The originals were lost to the river.
Having tested his principles of submerging and surfacing successful and gaining the financial means that he needed, Holland was able to start boat number 2 in May of 1879. Construction once again was in New York City at one of the main New York shipbuilding yards, the Dallamata Works. Dallamata Works would take a little over 2 years to construct the piece. Mainly he had complained that there were too many inventors alongside shipbuilders telling him that his principles would not work, but he insisted and stuck with his plan. And he really goes back to the beginnings of, this is the beginnings of high-speed submarine, the porpoise design. He understood water currents just as he discovered, air currents, learning from nature. Dimensions-wise, this submarine is 31 feet in length, or a little over 9.5 meters, and it's about 2 meters across all the way around. It could hold a crew of 3 people. You had your commander, your engineer, and your gunner. Unlike boat number 1, this was capable of firing one 6-foot Whitehead dynamite torpedo. It's actually a 9-inch bore that runs about 11 feet through the entire vessel.
In November of 1883, the submarine was stolen one night from its docking in the Hudson and taken to Connecticut. There it was stored in a shed for over 30 years. In 1916, it was pulled out, dusted off, and sent to Madison Square Garden in New York City, where it was used as an attraction in a bazaar held to raise money for the victims of the Easter Rising. After the bazaar, the sub was put on display on the grounds of a military academy in the Bronx. And there it remained until the military academy decided to relocate to Long Island in 1927. It was initially sold for scrap, and then rescued by a man named Harry Cunningham, who oversaw its transfer to the city of Paterson.
In 1928, boat number 2 was put on display in Westside Park, just adjacent to the Passaic River and where John Holland tested the first submarine. This memorial would be enjoyed for countless generations up through 1980. In 1980, recognized the importance of this vessel and the need to get it out of the weather, she was relocated to the new building of the Paterson Museum, housed in the former assembly shop of the Rogers Locomotive Works.
Holland went on to produce 4 more prototypes before the U.S. Navy purchased his submarine in 1900 to become the USS Holland. Holland left teaching and formed the John Holland Torpedo Boat Company, which would then become a part of the Electric Boat Company, now today the oldest part of General Dynamics, who still make boats and submarines for the U.S. Navy.
Holland was pretty much forgotten, as many inventors are, over time. To find out exactly what had happened to him, you could see just based on what was left at the cemetery for Holland. There's a simple little stone, a pillow stone that just said Holland and Foley. Holland, of course, for John Holland, and Margaret Foley, his wife. That simple marker was all that was left. They really didn't make much money during his lifetime, and he was pretty much, as I mentioned, forgotten. As a result of the naval proceedings, they started publishing articles in 1966 by Dr. Richard Morris, who would become his main biographer. This actually spurred the interest of a naval officer, Ray Gurnick, from the area, who launched a campaign to put a proper memorial fitting of the inventor of the modern submarine. A proper memorial was finally established through the efforts of former naval officer Ray Gurnick. Gurnick was able to raise a campaign to put a fitting tribute to John Holland, which can be seen today at Holy Sepulchre, just a couple miles from where the launch of boat number 1 actually took place.
We would like to congratulate HMS Holland 1 on its 120th anniversary, and thank you to the National Museum of the Royal Navy for including us in your celebrations.